Sekeres Price for Thursday, February 8th, 2024. We're coming to you from the Go-Go Sports Studio, built by Arbor Lee here at the iconic Wall Center, downtown Vancouver. If you're looking for a local getaway on Valentine's Day, call the Wall, 604-331-1000. Ask for the Sekeres Price rate. Some blackout dates may apply. Matt Sekeres alongside Blake Price, Grady Sass hitting switches, conducting things alongside intern Madison Buckingham. Big show today, Blake, all brought to you by Applewood Auto Group.
And Applewood Kia in Langley's got some smashing deals on the brand new 2024 Kia Niro EV and the EV6. You get complimentary EV charger or a complimentary set of winter tires, all thanks to Kia Canada. Go check it out at Applewood Kia in Langley. It's all good at Applewood.
Poll question today, can the Canucks keep up this pace? Yes or no? Voting at Sekeres Price on Twitter and YouTube. What is the pace, you ask? Well, after that victory in Carolina, just shy of 120 standings points.
Yeah.
Astonishing.
And to me,
like we were thinking of this as a high 80s, low 90s, maybe if all things went well, a mid to high 90s
point team,
something like that.
Yeah.
120.
Now, I don't think we're asking this question in terms of full-on regression back to a 96-point team. At this point, the math just would seem almost impossible.
Well, you're at 73 now.
Yeah. But, you know, a trip, a stumble so that it's a 105, 106-point team. I mean, it wouldn't be crazy to see that happen. It wouldn't really take away from the marvelous story that they've been, but they haven't really shown many signs of even being human at this point here, Matt. It's crazy that they are, Boston is kind of close as they get set for this matchup. But after Boston is the Colorado Avalanche and the Dallas Stars at 68 points, 5 in arrears, and they played more games than the Canucks.
No, it's stunning. And we asked this because another first place showdown for the Vancouver Canucks this afternoon, our time, against the Bruins, who lead the East. And of course, Boston is coming off a 135-point season last year, which got them home ice advantage against the Florida Panthers that they blew in losing the series. I voted yes on the poll question. Look, my head tells me probably not. You're probably not going to be able to keep up this pace for 32 more games and get to 120. But every single time they've been doubted this year, they've proved the doubters wrong. So I voted yes accordingly.
I'm saying
I now fell into line like a minion.
I'm saying no because, hey, they got the win last time out, but it was tough. It's way tougher to win games like they did a couple nights ago than it is to win like they did in October and November. And even in January, the early games in January, they're still scoring 5-6 goals a game. I don't know how often that's going to be able to happen here the rest of the way.
You got to be a contrarian, huh?
I'm not predicting doom and gloom.
Loves being a contrarian.
I'm not predicting doom and gloom.
No, I know.
I think they can still win the division even with a stumble. Even at 109 points, I think they probably still win the division.
Mm-hmm.
But clipping along at 118, 120 points anywhere in that, boy, that's just... It would be truly, I think somebody did the math for us. I think somebody said it's, here it is. It's the 11th best season in the 100-year history of the NHL, if they kept it up.
Points in 14 consecutive games heading into this game against the Boston Bruins. More on that in a second because the goalies have made up. But let's get to our top story, brought to you by Mr. Lube. New name in the rumor mill for the Vancouver Canucks and sounding like potentially some traction on a name that we have kicked around before. Let's start with the new report. Anthony DeMarco of the Fourth Period is connecting the Vancouver Canucks to Flyers defenseman Rasmus Ristolainen, who is generally loathed by the analytics community. The god-awful contract of $5.1 million for this year and a few more, and is producing all of 4 points in 30 games. This was a defenseman that scored 40 points 4 consecutive years. He was down to 20 last year in nearly a full season. He'll be lucky to crack 15 this year.
Jay Fresh Hockey puts out those wonderful playing cards that sort of, are an aggregate of their various underlying stats into a wins above replacement number. The last one I saw of Rasmus Ristolainen was March of 2022, so 2 full years ago. He was at a 1% wins above replacements.
Yikes. Now, he's a big right shot defenseman.
Yeah.
Obviously, Philadelphia would have to retain some money here, and Philadelphia would be retaining money for several years. 3 more after this one. I have a little bit of trouble with this.
No, it's a no for me, Doug. No.
Yeah. Age 29. I mean, he's got the pedigree. He's a big guy. He's a top 10 pick. But he certainly is not the player that he was even earlier in his career, which if you're a tire fire in your own zone, fair enough, if you can help fill up the other net. And at 40-some points every year. And remember, some of those totals came before scoring took the little jump that we've seen here.
Yeah.
Not so bad. But no, if he's giving you nothing offensively and you're worried about him.
And if he were a really undersized defense core, I could see you. But with Soucy and Zadorov and Myers, it's just not needed. Now, the number 2.
Phil Kessel. And I got to say, I missed this at All-Star weekend. But Rick Tocchet saying, yeah, Phil Kessel is a guy who could help. Straight free agent, costs you nothing off your current team, would be addition. And we've talked about the need for depth, more quantity up front. Tocchet had him in Arizona, where he was still pretty decent. And even last year, 36 points in 82 games for the Vegas Gold Knights before being used sparingly in the playoffs. That's not too bad. 14 goals. He's 36 now. And I'm guessing Tocchet has kept up with what kind of shape Phil's in.
It sounds like it. Hey, again, the cost, there's no asset cost, and the cost on the cap would be minimal as well. Hey, if they've done their due diligence on this and think that he's in reasonable shape, by all means, I'm doubtful of that. But if they've done that, why not?
Yeah, I mean, Tocchet's saying 100% sure he can still play. Saying there's value in Phil.
It's our top story brought to you by Mr. Lou, 100% Canadian, warranty-approved oil changes, and they now provide tire service and sales with no appointment needed. There's 16 locations in the Lower Mainland for one near you. Go to mrlube.com.
Yeah, and Tocchet in conversation with Luke Fox at All-Star Weekend, where the Kessel quote came from. So earlier in the week, we wondered, did JT Miller picking Jeremy Swayman to go up against at the skills competition, and then Thatcher Demko snubbing Jeremy Swayman's hug request, will that reignite the Bruins Canucks rivalry? Apparently not. We thought we had some real good old-fashioned hate, or at least dislike, between the Canucks and Bruins again.
They sent an edible arrangement, didn't they?
Right, but they have made amends. Here's Jeremy Swayman from the morning skate on Thatcher Demko patching things up.
It's the next day, and he's like, Sway, I'm so sorry about that. Yeah, he just didn't see, I guess, and I was laughing. It was like totally cool, but there's still love. He's a good guy, so we had a good chat about it.
Okay, so he was in the zone, and he just didn't see. He probably saw the video after. It was like, oh,
yeah, he was like, I'm so sorry. Yeah, so no, he's a very good guy, and no, it was awesome. It's a great group of goalies there, and we had a great time, a lot of good memories.
So no hockey bad blood there?
I never played against him, so
yeah.
We didn't have that rivalry, but no, not at all.
The story here, Thatcher Demko, laser focused.
You like to see that
skills competition.
Yeah. But honestly, for those that have ever met Demko, that tracks. Like he would absolutely be that guy.
But here's something. Did you see how into it Demko was in comparison to some of the others?
Yeah.
At the skills competition? Did he go against Crosby?
I didn't see all of it, so
no, but
I didn't see.
Demko was competing. Like he was in it to win it.
Yeah.
He was whatever the antithesis of Kucherov was Thatcher Demko.
Captain Canuck on YouTube says, "Bro's lying. I refuse to accept Demko apologized." LOL. I actually am a little bit surprised that Demko dealt with it at all. but I'm not going to.
You almost wonder if like his mom or dad, like, hey, son,
you look bad there.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think you look
guy
bad.
just wants a hug at All-Star weekend. You know, you can sort of drop the competitive guard at All-Star
Sometimes
weekend.
too, when stuff like that happens, even if it was completely unintentional, you kind of let it stand out there. If people are going to draw conclusions about it, why not?
And that audio courtesy of the Boston Bruins. All right, getting back to Kessel. Are you a yes or a no on Kessel?
I'm a yes. Like I if they've done the due diligence and think that he's fit enough to contribute, by all means. Now, again, and I'm not mean here, I think people would agree he had fitness questions in the heart of his career, never mind when he was 36. So if the due diligence has been done and that he is no less fit than he was, let's just hold his last fitness as sort of the standard. If he's no less fit than that, sure. Yeah. Again, he's basically free.
And do you see him as much like the Golden Knights used him last year? The break in case of emergency. Yes. You're not playing in the playoffs unless we have injuries.
Yeah.
So 13th, 14th forward type.
Yeah. Or the power play goes like ice cold, something, things like that. Yeah, exactly.
Well, look, if they're not going to take another big swing, and more on that in a second, because Chris Tanev is still out there, and there's news on the Tanev file that I think is most interesting. Yesterday we talked about Eric Johnson. Why? Veteran, leader, cup winner, right shot defenseman, affordable, both in terms of salary and trade acquisition. Minnesota Wild announcing Patrick Maroon going for back surgery, so he's going to miss the next 4 to 6 weeks. He'll probably not be in action by the deadline. But 3 straight cups, $800K, UFA, 36, again, leader, 150 playoff games in his career. And he's got 16 points in 49 games this year. You start to wrap your heads around that style of guy, right? The guy with the Stanley Cup playoff track record, the guy with Stanley Cup rings, the guy who's got character and leadership and isn't going to mind being a spare part on a good team. Been there, done that to some degree.
4 straight visits to the Cup.
Oh, I know. Absurd. All he does is win playoff series, that guy.
I'd be very, I don't think he's in my top 12. Again, he's like Kessel to me. I can't imagine right today, who does he play instead of?
Well, but that's the thing, is he probably doesn't.
No.
Unless you have an injury.
Yeah.
But I'm just using him as an example of the sorts of players to wrap your head around, much like Eric Johnson yesterday, the sorts of players to wrap your head around if, in fact, it's only going to be depth pieces from here on in for the Vancouver Canucks.
And here's the thing, what you could do, you sign a guy like that, you demote Nils Åman until the end of the season, and then at the end of the season when there's no salary cap, everybody's up. And you've got your pick of the litter of who to choose from, right? So that's how you would make it all work, and then he may not see action in the first couple of games. So, it's possible, but it would have to be a 6th round pick. I'm like,
oh, yeah. Oh, no, very, very, no. Yeah, you're basically getting something for nothing. You're basically, late round picks or C-level prospects. That's the sort of return we're talking about if we're going deeper.
Yeah.
Down the well for those depth pieces. Interesting. Åman requires waivers. So
does he?
I'm not sure you can get him down that quickly. Now, Darren Dreger, a couple of things from Dreger to get to here. The Edmonton Oilers have interest in Chris Tanev, which no duh. What an amazing fit Tanev would be on that blue line as a defensive defenseman. Sort of the exact profile of player the Oilers could really use, right? Are you at the point, if you're Rutherford Alvin, where you have to look at making moves not just for the sake of improving your hockey club, but keeping them away from your direct competitors in Edmonton and Vegas?
The answer is yes, but only to a point. There has to be a price because especially with Calgary as the brokers, like Calgary would love nothing more than to see both of those sides burn each other to a crisp in a bidding war to get those services. So, there's only two ways you win that, is that you win a low bidding war or you bid up the other side to the point where they mortgage their future.
Hey, that works too.
Yeah, it
Even
does.
if you're just the stalking horse, right?
Yeah.
Bidding up the Oilers. It's not the ideal outcome because they still get Tanev, but it's the next best thing.
Yeah, and that's the thing. He's a rental player, though, too. So if you, by accident, win a bidding war, you've done so for a guy that you may not have next year. So it's dangerous. I get the defense thing, particularly for out of division guys, like if it's a central division guy or team that you're competing against. But in division, when you know the brokers in division as well, boy, that just smells like overpayment.
Amazing that we're talking about, like, that's like Red Sox Yankees at their peak sort of stuff. Like, now we're going to trade for this guy and pay him just to keep him away from you.
Right.
But it's just something that occurred because
non-cap world, though, right?
I think you're going to hear of some names that are out there. Tanev is one that is going to draw interest from Vancouver, from Edmonton, and who knows, Blake, even Vegas here too, right? Arms race in the Pacific Division. That is quite possible over the next month, and we are exactly 1 month from NHL trade deadline.
And the Oilers would have some cap gymnastics there as well.
For sure.
So they've got 1.4 of current cap space. So it's not like, they need some help there. There would be corresponding moves to make Tanev fit for them, even if Calgary retains.
The other, and this was the other day from Dreger. So the New York Rangers were in on Elias Lindholm. They were one of the teams that was talking to Calgary about making a trade. Dreger didn't specify this, but apparently the hands of Chris Drury and the New York Rangers front office are being tied by the owner, James Dolan, who's, a bit of a different cat. Kind of a wildcat owner. He owns the Sphere in Las Vegas. And so he wants the Rangers to retain their first round pick so that they can make a splash or at least participate in the first round because of where the draft is being held. The actual building, the edifice, matters to him. And so that means the Rangers can't really trade their 2024 first round pick.
I'm going to guess that every first round pick gets blasted on the exterior of the Sphere. And so he wants that moment.
Can you make a splash with a winger from Owen Sound picked 25th overall?
Exactly.
No, but this is what I'm thinking.
You're a good team. So it's
this is a Rangers team that could win the cup. It's a pretty damn good team. Probably needs another piece or two. And you're telling your GM, who's not the most experienced guy to begin with, hands off that first round pick. We are absolutely picking someone 26 overall
from the Prince
Sphere.
Albert Raiders. The New York Rangers are proud to select.
Right. From the Drummondville Voltigeurs. but we'll have the image of him on the Sphere. The exterior.
Yeah. It's a weird choice.
That is, I have never once in my life heard of, no, we've got to keep our first round pick because of where the draft is located. The actual building, not even the city, the building, the four walls, or I guess in the Sphere's case, the one wall.
The Canucks will not have that free advertisement on the outside of the Sphere.
No, it's
unless
really too
there's
bad.
A real blockbuster move that's made, but I don't suggest that they are prioritizing recouping their first round pick.
Have you heard of the distraction in Leafland going on right now?
No, praise tell.
John Tavares versus the CRA.
Nobody wins that.
The Canadian Revenue Agency. Front page of the National Post today, I saw. Here's the story. Tavares, of course, was with the New York Islanders, signed with his boyhood team, the Toronto Maple Leafs. We all saw the jammies.
Pajama boy.
Yeah, we all saw the photo. Tavares' lawyers are arguing there's a tax treaty provision for artists, actors, athletes, and musicians moving north from the United States. Basically, an inducement tax-wise to get those folks up here living in
assault
Canada.
to the brain drain.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So Tavares gets a $15 million signing bonus. That was the other thing about his contract. It's almost all signing bonus, very little salary. So he gets his money up front. $15 million. Government says, well, that's taxed at 38%. His lawyers say, no. Because of this treaty provision, that's taxed at 15%. Government says, no, you owe us $8 million. Because this is a legal proceeding now, the filing has revealed that the Dallas Stars and the San Jose Sharks were right there in the bidding with the Leafs for Tavares. It details a 7-year, $91 million offer the San Jose Sharks tabled to Tavares that he said no to
because of
jammies and bed sheets.
Well, and this provision, undoubtedly.
He was absolutely set to make more money in Texas with Dallas or in San Jose, California, with the Sharks. Turned that money down to sign with the boyhood team, thinking he was cool on the signing bonus being taxed.
Heck of a precedent there. And Canucks fans might want to pay attention to this a little bit, because if by chance he wins, signing U.S. residents, not citizens, but residents, to massive front-end loaded signing bonus loaded deals, all of a sudden starts to put them on more even ground with states like Florida.
Or if he loses, as Glenn McGregor points out in the National Post article, it is going to be even more difficult for Canadian teams, and this is the 7 NHL teams and the Blue Jays and Raptors, signing a guy coming from the U.S., giving him the signing bonus, because the first thing his agent's going to do is say, well, you may get the $10 million signing bonus, but $3.8 million is going to be taxed right off the hop.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Not to mention the fact, the story also points out, the tax rate for these folks has already been increased going back to 2016 by the Liberal government. They used to pay 28% tax. Now they're up to 33%. So a third of your income, plus as much as 38% of the signing bonus, could all be going to the CRA and the federal government for these athletes signing from the U.S. And you're right, it's not citizens, it's residents of the United States who would be moving up to Canada to sign.
So no one's feeling bad for them financally, but
no, of course
selfishly
not.
As a hockey fan, if you see a loophole to sign an American-based free agent, boy, that would be quite a loophole. If that precedent gets set, that he gets away with 15%. Boy, the rest of the Canadian teams probably rubbing their hands together, thinking, "Okay, who's got U.S. tax status right now? That's a free agent coming up this summer." Interesting.
Speaking of percentage points, and this story brings us no joy because it was 3 years ago tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken, when our old radio station changed formats and has since been shuttered, the former AM 1040 here in Vancouver. But an extraordinary announcement today from Bell Canada that it is laying off 4,800 people nationwide, 9% of its workforce.
Let's talk about that.
And once again,
you forgot your hashtag.
True to form, in the weeks after Bell Let's Talk Day, this day that is supposed to make us feel that this company is a caring.
I think this is the third or fourth time they've done the second week of February thing.
And it's the second, they did it in June as well. So this is the second time in 8 months that there has been layoffs. If you're laying off 9% of the workforce, maybe the problem's in the boardroom, fellas. Just throwing that out there. Like, if you can't run your company to the point where you have to lay off that many people in one fell swoop after several rounds of layoffs, maybe you don't have the right leadership.
Yeah.
This is going to affect all aspects of Bell Canada, including the media division. Locally here, first of all, they're selling 45 of their 103 radio stations across Canada, including 16 of them here in British Columbia. And I guess that's the good news. At least those stations are being sold to companies that want to operate radio.
And hopefully they want to operate them with humans and at the same level.
None of them are actually in Vancouver or Vancouver Island. You've got 6 up north, and then you got 16 in the interior that are being sold. I don't know what is going to happen of the other 58 Bell Media radio stations across the country, but I fear for them, given the history of just walking away from frequencies. And again, locally, there will be no more CTV News at noon. In fact, there will be no more CTV News at noon in any market except for Toronto. And there will be no more CTV News on weekends in all markets except for Toronto, Montreal, and Ottawa. And I don't necessarily know why Ottawa and Montreal survive.
Toronto gets Toronto, Montreal's because it's the Bell base, and Ottawa because
it's the Parliament Hill.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So needless to say, and look, Blake and I are now nearly 3 years started up here as local independent media, April of 2021. So a couple months after we lost the radio station, Blake and I started up, and we started up under the premise that these Toronto telecoms just don't care about this market. And I'll actually give Rogers some credit. At least they're making an effort. There seems to be an effort out of Rogers, particularly after buying Shaw throughout Western Canada. There's no effort at Bell Media. The statement today from Mirko Bibic, their CEO, blames the economy, and okay, these aren't the best economic times, and in fact details massive losses in the radio division versus projected sales. But it also blames regulation, and I think that's the thing that is stuck in my craw the most out of all of this. Any broadcaster's foundational requirement in this country by the CRTC is you got to do some news programming. You got to actually do some things that educates the citizenry, lets them know what's going on at different levels of government
and it's a
and in their community. And Bell's asking to be exempt from that. No, we can't make a go of it if we have to do that.
Mm-hmm.
That's the reason you have the license. That's the deal you make to get these licenses.
Far easier just to roll reruns of Law and Order. You know?
Yeah. So, look, once again, it's going to be a day where you're going to continue to see a lot of people posting to social media about how they're caught up in the cuts. Again, you're laying off 4,800 people. This is going to affect all facets of Bell's business. So I'm sure there will be someone at either TSN or locally at CTV or with one of the Bell Media radio stations. There will be people out there today who are losing their jobs that I would suspect most everybody listening knows or has listened to, watched, what have you, over the years. And I feel for them today.
Thinking about them.
We have both been there, sadly. Okay, let's get to today's menu. It's brought to you by Greta. And a reminder, Canucks Army, Sekeres Price, we're hosting a game day watch party February 22nd at Greta. The doors are at 6 p.m. It's a ticket event, $10 tickets. Proceeds going to Canucks Place. You can get your $10 tickets at nationgear.ca. That's nationgear.ca. 6 p.m. February 22nd at Greta, 70 West Cordova. Prizes, food, and drink specials. A guaranteed good time. And you get to meet Blake Price.
Probably.
He
Yeah.
may even do a photo with you.
Probably not photos.
No photos.
No drawings. I love drawings.
Blake's a pretty good artist. He might draw you something. We'll talk to Patrick Johnson here. It's been a couple weeks since we've caught up with the Canucks beat reporter for the province and Post Media. Looking forward to that. We'll get to some hashtags, the best and worst of Twitter, another wrinkle in the Arizona Coyotes saga. Plus, we're finding out how we're going to divvy up $1.5 billion amongst golf professionals going forward, and it's going to be messy. Arash Madani of Sportsnet is at the Super Bowl in Las Vegas, which has got to be the biggest love fest Super Bowl media week I think I have ever experienced. There's great respect between Kansas City and San Francisco. They are lauding the others and their accomplishments. Barely a whiff of controversy in Sin City, Las Vegas, Nevada, a place where the NFL once upon a time didn't even accept their advertising dollars because they were squeamish about a connection to sports gaming. You finally bring your signature event to Las Vegas, and as of midday Thursday, not a single player's gotten in trouble. And there has been, other than some griping about the practice field the 49ers were given, barely any controversy.
I was really hoping the guy that climbed the sphere was Travis Kelce, but was not.
Not the case.
No.
Do you think it could have been James Dolan? Do you think it could have been a winger from Owen Sound figuring to go 25th overall in the NHL entry draft? The Caps played as well, got their season going in CONCACAF Champions Cup over on the island against Tigres. We'll talk about that as well. But Blake, some business to attend to with regards, in my case, to Super Bowl. Where we're putting money.
Your best
Where
bet
we're putting
is going
money.
there again. Presentation of Sports Interaction, your homegrown sports book and casino. You seem anxious. Go ahead.
Well, I said I was going to do a week of Super Bowl props, so I'm down to my final prop here. And we'll talk about this subject with Arash Madani. That Brock Purdy ball, it just hangs that extra second. He just doesn't have, they use the phrase arm talent now. I don't know how arm talent replaced arm strength, but nevertheless, here we are.
Arm.
Well, arm talent, like if you're not a football fan, what does arm talent mean? Arm strength. Arm strength.
Well, I guess
that's what we're talking about.
Are we talking like the different angles, like Mahomes and
if you want to talk about that, then yeah, it's not purely strength.
Yeah.
But when we're just talking about getting the ball from A to B on a zip line, Brock Purdy, he's just not quite of the level of, well, no one's at the Patrick Mahomes level, but he's not at the star level. So I expect an interception in this game from Kansas City. L'Jarius Sneed, he missed the early part of Super Bowl week. Why? He and his girlfriend were having a baby girl. Jim Nantz is doing the broadcast. Jim Nantz always talks about the new fathers. Talks about it in golf, talks about it in basketball, talks about it in football. Why? They just play carefree.
the baby bump.
They have had something happen in their lives that makes the games feel, pretty inconsequential in comparison, right? So you go on out, you play free, you know you're going home to something special. L'Jarius Sneed, 11-1 to make an interception in the Super Bowl, and I'm putting a nickel down.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna just get into my Super Bowl pick tomorrow.
That's a mine.
Going back to the ice today or for tomorrow. The Anaheim Ducks get the unenviable task of taking on the Oilers after the streak is snapped.
Oh, this could get ugly.
Could get ugly. Or maybe, just maybe, there's a letdown from the Oilers.
You think?
They finally lost.
It's Anaheim? No Zegras?
You're getting 320 if you think the Oilers might just let down a little bit.
Oh, I hate that.
After the streak that was.
No.
The tax is not good enough. It's only 136.
No, I know.
So
you can't bet them to win.
No.
But I'm not betting them to lose.
Come on. Take a little bit of a risk first.
I'm going 11-1 on my props.
Sports Interaction, your homegrown sportsbook and casino featuring custom props and parlays you won't find anywhere else, speaking directly to the Vancouver sports fan, plus a best-in-class casino, thousands of games and live dealers. Sports Interaction, bet local, must be 19 years of age, and please play responsibly.
Patrick Johnson is next. Great Clips is the official hair salon of the National Hockey League. There are 37 salons in Vancouver and the Lower Mainland, all Canadian owned and operated. Download the app and find the nearest to you. When you're up next for a cut, you'll get a ready next text. Great Clips. It's going to be great.
My family's very own whiskey, barrel-aged and set apart, marked with VO, artfully blended, impeccably crafted, as a wedding gift to my son, for the bride and groom. And now, over a century later, from our very own family to yours, a legacy rooted in whiskey. Seagram's VO, growing deeper, reaching out, raising a glass to your legacy. Seagram's VO, make it your very own.
Hey, gang, if you're finding yourself a little directionless with a purpose on a game night, may I recommend Greta. It's a great spot to catch the game throughout the season. They're at 50 West Cordova, so you're on foot. You're just walking to and from the game. It's a lot of fun. It's a go-to spot for food, drink specials, and fun before and after the game. They do have specials every day. They've got all-day happy hour on Wednesdays, and they've got all those arcade games to keep you busy as well. So make it a fun game night at 50 West Cordova. Greta Bar and Grill, and visit them at gretabar.com.
Joined now by Patrick Johnson of the Province and Post Media. It's been a couple of weeks, Blake. We missed him last week. We took a couple days off with the Canucks bye. Hi, I'm Matt. He's Blake. Good to see you again.
Pleased to meet you.
Mm-hmm.
I was just out there seeing if I was worth a first round pick. I was,
Everybody's worth a first round.
Yeah.
Nick Dow goes for a first round pick. Patrick, everybody's worth a first round pick at that point. Did you get away at all? Did you?
No, come on. No. But the ladies are away. They're in Mexico. They're having a good time.
Oh my goodness. Your wife and her friends, they take more vacations per capita than I think any friend group I know.
They've earned it.
And you're always left behind.
I
gotta say, Candace has got a good thing going on here.
No, let me put it this way. There was a chance that came up to have done something last weekend. Months and months and months ago. A friend of mine, it's his 40th birthday. He lives in England. He threw sort of the global invitation out. The original plan was to go to Rome to watch England versus Italy, Six Nations rugby.
Oh, wow.
And I actually it was far enough ahead that I actually did a little research, and I actually could have found it. I would have had to it would have been I think 2-stop flight, but you fly through the US kind of deal. And I found a pretty decent price. And then he and the boys, in fact, had booked a bunch of hotel rooms just to make sure that it was covered off because, England away, any England away travel, any sport in Europe, you've got to be ahead of the curve, right? Anyway, he was on top of it. What he hadn't looked into was the price of flights from London to Rome for that particular weekend for all the obvious reasons, because there's going to be all these English rugby fans wanting to go. And so it didn't happen. And so now they're doing it something this week in like Seville. And I was like, guys, I got to work. I can ignore the NHL All-Star game, but I can't ignore the Canucks in Detroit. So there you go. I was this close. So I'm trying. I'm trying to make something happen, Matthew.
To partying with the English Yobs in Rome. And instead you wrote about Marty Walsh. And
there you go.
He can't come to our Greta event on the 22nd of February because he has his Strata AGM.
Yeah.
Where he may get promoted to Strata president from vice president after a long and arduous campaign through Iowa and New Hampshire.
I've never heard more people involved in the Strata than I have in the last few years.
Honestly, why would you ever join a Strata? Why? It is creating problems in your life that you can just completely ignore so long as you
really care about the furniture in the foyer that
much.
It's not. No, boys, this is big time stuff. We got to replace the stairs on the outside of the building, parkade repairs. Come on.
Okay.
Oh
all right.
It is unbusy people who need to feel important in life.
Oh, come on, Matthew. If you knew how important this Strata was.
I told my parents, you stay far away from the Strata as possible. If somebody talks to you in the elevator about anything Strata, you polite, you nod, you smile, you walk out, you don't give it another second's thought.
Yeah. If
fake governments.
Retired communities that have Stratas. My buddy's mom is involved, and they meet every week. If that was what we were doing, I would not be involved.
Honestly, if 13-year-olds want to get together for a mock UN General Assembly, have at it. That is part of the education process. But when grown-ups decide, oh, we're going to create our own little, government, quasi-judicial body over here. No, stay far away.
So to bring this back to hockey,
4 minutes in. Sorry.
Are the Canucks merely going to change the furniture in the foyer, i.e. a seventh defenseman, or are they going to completely revamp the exterior lighting and the parkade?
Yeah, staircase
for a fourth defenseman right side.
That's pretty good, Blake.
Would Phil Kessel be like changing the lock on the bike cage downstairs?
Something like that. Yes, I think so. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's combo lock now. Here's the code. Don't share it with anyone, or we're gonna drag you in front of the strata.
Share it.
I think you're more onto something there, Blake. I mean, I think they would love to add another big piece, but I'm not sure they do it in the market. If there really is a market for a first round pick for Nick Dowd, like I'm not sure those you're really chasing. You want to make moves, but like some of them are going to be nuts. And that may just price you out, especially.
But honestly, today we're talking about a first round pick for Nick Dowd. Yesterday we're like, maybe it's a buyer's market at the end of it.
No,
so which is it?
Honestly,
I think it is.
What, a buyer's?
I think if you make some of these, I think if you wait another month here, I think you have more teams looking to sell. I think you're going to get some value at the deadline this year.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, and I think there's enough teams that I kind of already know they're not in it, even though, you look at like the Western Conference wildcard race and there's like 4 or 5 teams in the mix there, right? There's enough teams that kind of know they're out, and there's enough look at Calgary, like Calgary already knows they're selling. It's not just Tanev, it's Hanifin. Like there's more guys moved there. I do think the Canucks are pretty happy with their defense core. Adding Lindholm obviously is a huge thing for them. And we've already seen how it, I think, changes the dimensions of their lines. That said, as I've said more than once, Jim Rutherford didn't stop at Doug Weight in 2006. He went and got Mark Recchi at the deadline as well. Like he built a whole new second line. So, in their heart of hearts, would they like to get a Frank Vetrano? Where does Frank Vetrano sit on this roster, right? Like, I think that's the kind of guy that they could still be interested in. There certainly is some cap room. Like they have almost $2 million really in sort of space with how the LTIR is set up and juggling things around. If you can convince a team to do retention, if you could do a trade through a third party to make things really cheap, I think that there are things they could do here, right? They are not as hamstrung as they might have been in the past, even if it is challenging. So yeah, I don't think they're shy about trying to find something else to do. I'm just not sure if they'll be able to do it. That's the only question.
Hey, and it's interesting you say Vetrano, because boy, we got a lot of we did some Vetrano talk last week and got a lot of response on that. Answer me this: do you think Mikheyev is in play here, like Kuzmenko, or do you just think he's in a slump and he is part of the plans going forward?
I mean, first of all, yes, he's definitely in a slump. I think too, he's in the reality of ACL recovery. I mean, go back to Pavel Bure. Think about how long it took him to come back. It really hasn't changed. There's a lot of examples of substantial knee surgery and taking a while to come back. It's been a year since he had his surgery now. I have a hard time imagining, just with how he's played and the sort of perception of what he might be. He's not coming off a 39-goal season. To me, that was the Kuzmenko advantage, and that you could see he was at least trying stuff. The thing with Mikheyev, we just haven't seen anything. Like, that's been the hard thing to see. If they could flip him out for something else, I suppose. I don't have any insights on that particular question. Okay. I have been pondering what they might do in that spot. There's a reason why I mentioned the Recchi thing, but I think their preference certainly would be for him to get on track and start popping some goals and to work with that line as it's set up.
I ask in part because, the one thing the Lindholm trade didn't do was add quantity, because you shipped out one forward to bring another forward back. And I think at some point it's a quantity and depth matter as much as it is a quality matter, and getting rid of guys who aren't necessarily playing their best hockey right now.
Well, let's address you playfully referenced the Phil Kessel thing.
Yeah.
And Luke Fox asked Rick Tocchet about that during the All-Star break. And,
Yeah.
it was a pretty emphatic endorsement that he thought the Kessel had game left, which was a little bit odd because if you hadn't been speaking with Phil Kessel, you'd probably be like, I mean, I don't know, I haven't seen him in months. You'd give sort of a middling answer. I think
Yeah.
it was sort of emphatic, which leads you to believe he might know something.
Yeah, I mean, I saw the quote and I sort of went, okay. I mean, listen, he was Rick's best forward basically consistently when he was coaching in Arizona, right? Like that was sort of the most consistently best forward that he had. He was a really good player, really important player on the 2 Stanley Cup teams in Pittsburgh, which of course was 8 and 7 years ago. I do look at at Kessel's season last year where he played a lot for Vegas and then barely played in the playoffs and became a spare part. To me, Kessel, if I'm the Canucks, I think you're looking at Kessel as sort of the fail-safe option that if there's nothing else that plays out, that's a guy that you can bring in. I mean, he hasn't played in 10 months. That's the thing. And no matter how hard he's been skating, no matter how hard he's been trying to keep himself in shape, it's going to take him a while. If there had been an opportunity to sign him, say in December, something like that, like then you have a little more window for him to get fit, get back in, ease him in. But we're getting close now. I mean, the trade deadline's in a month, less than a month, or it's a month almost exactly, I think. And then the playoffs are in just over 2 months. Like that's not a lot of time to work with anymore with a player like him. So I don't think it's impossible. I just think I think it's well down the list of likely, and that there are other options. I think they're looking at ahead of that.
He'd be super cheap, and it means you don't spend a dime of asset to bring in. So that would be the other part of it, right? So
and maybe he ends up being an insurance option over and above some other move, depending on how that's structured. But I don't get the sense it's not impossible, but I also don't get the sense that it's high on the list right now.
Dreger says the Oilers are in on Tanev.
Sure. I mean, they should be.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Which, thus I'm asking the question. Are you at the point, do you think they're at the point where you may look at making a move, not just to improve your hockey club, but to keep a key piece away from a direct competitor? Because I think everybody recognizes Tanev would be exactly what Edmonton needs.
I wouldn't put it past this group. I mean, if you look deep inside some of the moves that Rutherford made, like the Mark Streit trade, who barely played in the playoffs, played 18 games down the stretch and then played 3 games in the playoffs. Like that was a guy who could still play. And that I think in hindsight looked like a move of just trying to make sure that the depth guy doesn't land somewhere else, that you're keeping it away from a rival. I could absolutely see them trying to do that. The interest in Tanev was definitely there in the Lindholm talks. The price of everything and trying to make it work under the cap, I'm sure was what held that up.
Imagine the Flames playing these 2 teams off of each other.
Oh my God.
Delicious.
Yeah, it is delicious. It's sort of, you want to win, but if the second best thing is that you can drive Edmonton and Vancouver crazy, I think that's certainly something that's a role you're going to try to play, right? Yeah, yes. Absolutely.
They're on 120-point pace here.
Yes,
going into this would-be Stanley Cup preview against Boston. Now clearly the best team in the league by every metric.
Yeah.
You think they can keep a 9-game homestand in March? They go like a full month without even leaving the city of Vancouver.
Like regression talks out the window, but there is a world in which they have a 5-game losing streak and finish with 108 points, which would still be a great season and all that sort of thing. But do you see even that happening?
Or are they going to just keep it up?
I mean, they are the last team that has yet to lose, or they are the last team that has yet to lose 3 games in a row, right? Mm-hmm. Like they haven't done that. I'm not the first person to say this. I mean, many have said this before me. They have been much better since Christmas. That sort of mini training camp after Christmas that they were able to have, just working on a little more strategy stuff, system stuff, I think has made a difference. The goaltending remains fantastic. The foundation of this team is solid, right? That the defensive 2-way game is solid. the fact that their shooting percentage at even strength is down to 11.7, guys.
They're barely scoring.
They're under 12, but they're still, two percentage points above kind of what I think most teams realistically can hope to shoot. So they may run a dry patch. I mean, I don't think it's going to be hard for them to run a dry patch given how they approach shooting the offensive zone now, that they actually hold the puck rather than shoot the puck. And there is, I think, maybe something to that, though. On the whole, you just know the numbers win out in the end. No matter what you are trying to do, the simple truth is that you're not going to keep scoring at the rate you're scoring. I could see them. You lose a few more games here. I could, the 100. I mean, I laugh when you say 120 point pace because it on its face sounds absurd. No matter who the team is, that was the Boston Bruins last year with the most. I mean, think how crazy the Bruins season was last year. And how everything went right for that team. And that team was like a deep, talented team. And the Canucks are deep and talented. I don't think they're the Boston Bruins of last year. I think there's going to be some bumps. This road trip they're on is a tricky one. There's another tricky one in a couple weeks. There's probably going to be that long homestand. Like, you could lull yourself a little bit into complacency.
Completely.
Like, I can just see it. It's inevitable. There's what
Yeah.
you
9-game homestand is too long.
Going and coming.
No, absolutely.
It's too long.
At some point in the 9-game homestand, you're going to go off. You're going to have a night. You're going to do something out of routine, and you're going to drop a Thursday game to the Montreal Canadiens.
Yeah,
because you're not as ready to go.
Yeah, I still think things are set up that I think it is going to be a surprise if they do lose 3 games in a row, which sounds absurd to say it, just in terms of the way they've been playing, the way they've been sort of managing themselves emotionally. I think back to the story I put together before the All-Star game, which I put on the weekend, about just the most fun thing. And Pettersson was just so emphatic on the notion of how they've been able to deliver on their own expectations. They've set a standard for themselves and they're delivering, and they have that pattern of success. And that they're huge fans of the coach. They're huge fans of what the coach has them doing because they're getting the results and they can see it and they believe in him and they believe in each other. There's the confidence is quiet and very, very, very strong on this team.
Quinn Hughes saying that being shitty for that long made them want to compete every night.
Yeah. And that's what Quinn said to me. He said, I think I said this before, but that 70% of their success is Rick Tocchet and his coaching staff, and Tyler Myers totally agreed. You want one player who's improved his game and become one of the best players in the NHL, and another player who's improved his game to be, a competent every night contributor in Tyler Myers. Like, both those guys have seen different versions of the same thing, which is that everything's working and that they believe in each other and they're playing better. And they're just going to keep going. I mean, they've won. They haven't lost in how many games? Like, actually lost in regulation and
12,
11, 12. Yeah, right. Like, they're going to lose. It's not the end of the world, but they're playing. They are lots of things that are going for them. So I think they're just going to keep.
It feels like they're scoring less. And you mentioned the shooting percentage going down. I just checked. You know how many times they've scored more than 4 goals in the calendar year of 2024? 6 times.
Yeah.
Like it feels like they're scoring less, but they're really not much. Still scoring 5-6 goals.
And that's the one thing that if they're going to score less, they're going to have fewer of those games. They're just going to have to win. They're going to end up winning games more by 1 goal. I
think that's right.
It's been the story this season. Is they're winning by blowouts night after night after night.
I was going to wrap up this segment by saying we had a spicy, jocular, fun interview with Patrick. And for the listener or two who keeps at us on this, not a single curse word involved. And then this guy goes and drops a shitty. We were this close to doing something great, Patrick.
Oh, well.
And he blew it for us.
I mean, I don't know, Matt. We started talking about Stratos for 4 minutes.
Yeah.
That was a little much. It was a little much. We're going to end this with talk of Six Nations rugby. There's a new Netflix reality series. Have you seen the Netflix reality series?
I'm aware of it, but I am.
Yeah, I started it. It didn't hold my attention. Even the great Scottish accents didn't hold my attention. No.
Matthew, there's a referee documentary on the available.
Oh, wow.
That
sounds scintillating.
A referee documentary.
Rugby referee. Yeah, it's on Rugby Pass.
Oh, rugby referees.
Yeah.
Oh, still.
I know you're a big fan of them. You know, you might appreciate that.
Oh, I'm a fan of the rugby play-by-play guys, particularly the Scottish ones who refer to the
Jamie Lyle. If you want, I can get him. We're social media.
Really?
buddies.
Oh, okay.
You don't like the Canadian rugby
maybe in the
play-by-play
summer.
guys?
No,
Oh, yeah,
the
what about this
Canadian
guy?
rugby
He's my
play-by-play guy. I just don't believe him.
This guy, my protege.
Exactly.
Mhm. Until next week.
Take care, guys.
Mm-hmm. Hey, everybody. If you're enjoying what you're seeing here, then follow along with Sekeres Price on YouTube. I promise more content coming.
The kids call it subscribe on YouTube.
Well, how about liking it?
Do that as well. Smash it right now.